Good morning, YouTube. This is JB from JB's Racing. I'm going to show you a couple of things that I've learned about putting aluminum parts on your 949 twin hammers, 10428, and the 10428A. Now the 428A, just to let you know, is the same car chassis and suspension parts, but it has a different cage and body. They're completely different. But these wheels, these aluminum wheels you see here, and on this red one, and I've got another stack here. These are All-Star wheels and they'll fit on all of those models. Now this one has All-Star tires on it. That's All-Star, A-U-S-T-A-R. And these are the tires that come on the WLToys 10428 and the K949. Now this is the 949 with the black plastic roll cage. The 10428 has this green roll cage. The twin hammers is the same thing, and it has the black roll cage, and these wheels also fit on it just like they will on these. And these tires are slightly taller and I like them better, but they don't fit the wheels very well. It was quite a chore to get these tires on these wheels, but you can do it. One of the things that I did was order some screws like this one here. And these are, I ordered from McMaster.com. This is the size that they are. You can see on the package here. And they are the same size that go in the hub on the screw to screw it together. These little tiny screws right here. They go all the way around. There's 6 of them. The ones that are on here are the perfect length for the All-Star tires, because the All-Star tire bead will sit on the inner ring very nicely, and then you can put the two wheel halves together and the screws will reach. You have to kind of press it a little, but you can press it and you can get the little screws to bite into the threads. But with these tires, the whole of the tire seems slightly large, but you can work with it and get it on the inner ring and then put on the back side, and then after you've got it on the back side seated as well as you can, then put the front side on, and you might have to kind of work it, just kind of pinch it back and work it and get it so that the wheel outer section will fit down on it, and then use these longer screws to get started pulling the wheel down onto the tire, and work it as you tighten it. And then once you've got it tightened down, if you want, you can take these longer screws out and put the short ones in, because you've compressed it far enough that the short ones will fit. I get these at McMaster.com. I'm an engineer and buy stuff from them all the time, and when you make an order from them, you'll get it quick. It's not necessarily cheap, but they have everything you can think of, and it's truly engineering grade materials that you get from them. Just a little note about the wheels there. One other thing about the wheels, these wheels are actually filled with air. There's no foam in them whatsoever. And I have a little trick for doing that. I think there's probably some other people on YouTube who have told this little trick. And what you do is you take your tire, and it works with these with the All-Star tires that fit on the wheels. I doubt you could get that trick to work with these, just because it takes so long to get the tire seated and there's such a battle to get it on there. But what you do with these is you'll put your inner ring in. Well, first you have to tape up the hole on the inner ring. So put you a piece of tape on the inner ring, and I wrap that tape all the way around the ring so it doesn't come off. I put a couple of wraps around there, and that'll seal out the little vent hole that's on that inner ring that goes inside the tire you can't really see. When you seal that hole off, then put it in the tire and put on your back section and get it seated very nice. And get it seated on the ring as well as you can, the inner ring, on the front bead of the tire. But don't put your front section of your wheel on yet. Take it and put the whole thing in the freezer. And lift a little corner of the tire up so that air can get inside the tire and under the ring on the inside, because what you're going to do is decrease the temperature of the air inside that tire to your freezer temperature. Leave it in there for about 30 minutes. And that more dense air in the freezer will eventually fill the pocket of air inside this tire. Once you've done that, and it's set there for 30 minutes, go and quickly fold the bead down onto the inner ring and put on your outer wheel and start squeezing it down and putting your screws in. Do that fairly quickly, or maybe even stand right there with the refrigerator open and do it right there inside the freezer. I mean, not the refrigerator, the freezer, until you get it in. And once you've done that and you've got it sealed, you've got this nice and tight, and you know it's not going to leak any air because this will pinch and seal all the way around that ring on the inside. Once you've got that, then you can take it out of the freezer and let it warm up. And when it warms up, the dense air in here will expand and create just enough air pressure to give you a little bit of air. You don't want very much air pressure in it, particularly if you're crawling. And it's actually better. I would like it better for crawling than this one with foam in it. And now here's the All-Star tire with the stock foam mount. These I bought completely built and mounted up. And there's a little bit, these are a little bit softer than the All-Star stock with foam in them. So that's going to make it a little better for crawling. We'll see how it works. Now I haven't actually run this car yet with these wheels on it and tires, but with air in it. But we'll run it and see how it does. But I really think it'll conform to the rocks and grip a little bit better for crawling. Be interesting to find out. I know that air-filled tires are put out by G-Made, and All-Star, the company that makes these, has some air-filled tires, and I bought some of them, and they're very large. They're much too large. They're I believe they're 130 millimeter, and these are 108s. So that puts them up about here, and they just look too big on this car, so I don't use them on it. Okay, when you get you some aluminum parts, here's what they look like when you get them. If you order them from bqlzr.com, which is where I bought them. And I bought 4 sets of them for 4 cars, and this is just 2 of them. And this one is a set here that's not been installed yet, and they'll come in all these little plastic bags. But they don't have all the exact screws you need. And there is a problem with that, because this screw right here is supposed to fit in this hole, and it doesn't. So drill it out so that that little collar right there, that shoulder on that screw, can fit through this hole. Either that or use a different screw that has a tapered head on it. Those are called flathead screws, or sometimes countersunk screws. And you can get one that's small enough to fit in that. And I did that with one of the cars. This one is done that way. Maybe you can't see it obviously, but it has a different screw that fits in it that will fit through that hole. Now that is going to go through this thread, or through this this shoulder will go through that hole, and you need to drill it out. And that's the way the stock plastic ones are. And the stock plastic ones, it's about an 11/64 hole. So if you take an 11/64 drill bit, or measure it with some calipers, and drill that hole, and drill it slightly larger, because you want that to be able to rotate freely in here, otherwise it'll bind your suspension. So you'll just drill that hole on out, and it works fine. This one is done that way. You can see that's the stock screw in there. Might be able to see it on this side. This one has a Phillips head screw there. That's because I put a different screw in it. Now here's another thing about this that is a problem. When you get this part here, let me open this package here, because you've got a part here that you're supposed to put this screw into, but it doesn't have any threads on it. So you're going to have to force thread this thing. This is the hole right here that it goes into. It's supposed to go into this hole. However, that hole is not threaded. So you've got to either get yourself a tap this size Or you can find another screw this size and you can cut it and make it into a self-tapping screw. And what you'll do with that is take a Dremel tool. It's not too hard of a thing to do. Just take a Dremel tool and just put a little slice in it right there. Just barely, just nick it just a little on just the first 3 or 4 threads. And that will probably let you thread it into this. It's going to be pretty hard on these heads here. This is a socket head screw or an Allen head screw, and they're not very tough. This metal is not very hard, so it probably won't hold up very well to your Allen head screw. So if you look at this one I put in here, you can see it's a little shiny around the edge. That's because I had to thread it with pliers. Actually, I put some small vice grips on there and threaded it into this piece before it was installed on the arm. And I threaded both sides, pre-threaded them so that I knew this screw would go in without too much of a battle once it was time to install it in this arm. So do what you can. There may be someone else who's come up with another idea on how to do it, but the fact is this is not threaded and there's not room for a nut. You don't want to put a nut on this because it'll come out into this hole here, and this hole is where your shaft goes through. So you need to keep that nice and open for your drive shaft on the front end to go through. You can see it goes right through that hole. If you put a nut in the inside of that, it might take up too much space and hit your drive shaft. So just tap this thing and you'll be okay, because I did it on both of these. Now anytime you're putting these together, use copious amounts of Loctite, because anything that you are bolting metal to metal, you want to put some Loctite on anytime, but particularly with the difference between these materials being steel and aluminum. There's one other thing that I had a little problem with, and that was the shock, balls on the shock. The balls are a little bit too wide to fit. Now this particular ball does fit in this one, but the ones on the stock shocks and the ones on the stock shocks don't fit in those holes, and I wanted to use my stock shocks. Now I could change the ball out, or you can narrow that ball, and I narrowed the ball because I didn't like the way the new ball fit in the arms. Now this is the arm here, and this you can't change, so you will have to do some work on this ball here because it won't fit into this slot where it's supposed to sit here. So just take your Dremel tool and shave a little bit off the edge of it and you'll be okay. I just kind of shaved a little bit right there. But when you do that, take it out of the plastic part, because that ball will heat up and it'll soften your plastic part, and then you've ruined it. So take it out and hold it with some needle nose pliers, or maybe some little forceps or something that you can just get a hold of it with. That's really the only two things on it, pretty much. Otherwise it's just pretty much just bolt it right on and you're good to go. One of the things I do on these, the body on this one's not bolted down, so I can take it off and show you. When I'm in here, I go ahead and take this differential apart, and there's 4 screws. Once you take this outer plastic case apart, you'll see the differential in there with the outer ring gear. There are 4 screws in that ring gear. Loosen those screws and take that apart, and I put in thick, heavy grease. You want to use a grease that's suitable for metal, because all the gears in there are metal. So use something like Valvoline axle grease or bearing grease, or maybe that marine bearing grease like you use on a boat trailer bearings. Anything like that's fine. And what that'll do is slow the differential action of that front differential a little bit, so you don't, when you're climbing, you don't get this wheel spinning and this one not even working at all. But you'll still have enough differential to help you get through turns. So you'll have differential action, but it'll just be such a heavy grease. You know, you can get 5,000 weight oils and all that stuff, but honestly it's just cheaper just to go down to Walmart and you can get a big old cup of that grease for $4, and it doesn't have to be any kind of a great grade of grease. And just load that thing down and put it all back together. Pack as much of that grease in there as you can. It works fantastic. I use it. It's on all of these now, and it significantly improved their climbing capability. And we use these on a little obstacle course where we have a mixture of climbing. We have a couple of high-speed straights, and we just race these out in the backyard for fun. They are just tremendous amount of fun. I highly recommend them. It's a lot different than just a buggy or a flat-out racer because you have all this articulation. But these, now this one has the modified shocks on it, the shocks you get with the aluminum kit. I really don't like those, so I didn't put it on this one when I did it. I'm leaving the stock shocks in. Now you could, one of the things about them is these shocks are longer. Both of the front and rear shocks on this upgrade kit are longer. Now you can take them apart and put a little piece of fuel tubing in them and shorten them. And if you don't know how to do that, look around on YouTube. Somebody probably has a video of how to do it. Or if you ask me, I'll show you how to do it. But you can take them apart and it will shorten the effective length of the shock. And then use these springs. The springs that come on the upgrade kit, I've tightened them and done all kinds of things to get them right, and I can't get the right spring rate out of them. So these springs are perfect for it. So you could put these springs on the upgrade shocks and use the little fuel tube trick to shorten the throw of the shock, and you'll be just like you have stock shocks. These shocks don't really hold any oil. It just leaks out, so I don't even bother with it. But for crawling and stuff like that, I don't feel like I need a lot of damping. I just felt sticking with the stock shocks was fine. It'd be kind of cute to have those little red shocks on there, but I'm not that picky. One other little quick thing I wanted to tell you about here. On this is the speed control, and this is a heat sink. And this is the way we used to have heat sinks a long time ago. I had the old Novak T1s, and we'd have 2 of these heat sinks on there. And that's what I raced with. And I've been primarily interested in racing. It's only been recently when I've gotten involved in these crawler type things. But this is your speed control receiver combination that comes on the WLToys stuff. I'm not sure what comes on the twin hammers, but I believe it's a lot better radio system. I've ordered one, but I haven't received it yet. Should be any day. But you have these little tabs sticking out, and those tabs are FETs, field effect transistors, and they are that's the primary device that provides the current to your motor. But those little tabs sticking out of there get very hot. That is where the tab is sinking heat off of the IC down inside the device. Well, these little things will fit on there, and you can go find these on eBay, kind of an old version of a heat sink. Now we have, fans and other types of heat sinks, but this will go right on, and you can get them pretty cheap, and it sticks on there in between these little slots. I'm not sure if you can see it in the picture or not, but you might be able to see how they slide up in there. So you kind of got to space them around. Be careful, bend them gently until you can get them to line up with open slots on that, and then just slide that thing down on there. And it'll pull a little more heat off of it and give your electronic speed control a little more life. Just one quick glimpse at what the red components look like on here. These are also red mag wheels. They have these in red and black. Wish they had them in blue, and green would be really nice. You can get these aluminum parts in all different colors, and you could check Integy. Integy has a lot of aluminum parts for these, more even than this, and they've got some really hot looking little rear end parts that you can put on there. You can have a complete aluminum rear end on it. Check them out. They have some really nice stuff. It costs a little more, but it's really, really well done. And they put screws, the proper screws. I got these because they're cheap, but if you buy it from Integy, I think it might bolt together a little easier. They may even be made by the same people, but Integy takes care more of the details. Generally, the way these companies do business is they'll contract with some manufacturer to make parts, and then they'll add screws and instructions and better details and things like that with it. Or they may even spec a different kind of material, maybe a harder aluminum. This appears to be 6061 aluminum that these are made out of, but not sure. If you haven't seen the radio that comes with these, it's a pretty nice radio. I like it really well. You can say it's a clone of a Spectrum or whatever, or a Futaba, but to be honest with you, I think they're really the same exact radio, just a different brand name on it. Well, just a little something for putting on some aluminum parts on your twin hammers or your WLToys rock racers. If you have any questions, put them in the comments and I'll answer them as quickly as I can. Until next time, this is JP signing off.